Our God is an awesome God. I'm overwhelmed, really. I was so worried that these last 2 recordings were just something I could not publish. Just didn't have the faith and the trust to publish them. And so I've left it for a while, a day or so, and to look at it again. And what's it now, 4:17? I've looked at them. And I feel rescued by God in that I can publish them. And of course I want to, because I believe in my heart that it's a blessing. Of course, if you're of a different view, you may find it absurd that I think this, but you need to be what you understand yourself to be. In the fullness of that. And you will learn, I think, very quickly to adjust your view of who you are and what you value. And you'll come to God faster than fast. I don't want you to be reckless in the sense of harming yourself by being too open in revealing what you understand to be maybe unacceptable differences to others, because I don't wish you to be hurt. God is not in a hurry. If it takes eternity to bring you to life eternal, it's worth it to Him, because He loves you. You're His child. So don't feel that you must run faster than you are able. But please don't sit still when you could be walking fairly happily, if you know what I mean. You're not here to do what you can't do. You're here only to enjoy doing what you can comfortably do. You know, don't create a wonderful, kind God, but treat yourself with an appalling austerity that is utterly alien to His tenderness and His love and kindness and concern for you. That is absurd. If He chooses to be so kind that He doesn't even tell you your faults most of the time, but reveals it mildly to you in teachings, mildly to you in what you observe from that around you of good and evil and the fruits thereof, and what perhaps you experience a bit less mildly, some of the things you find you suffering. If God is so gentle with you and all in this regard, shouldn't you be likewise? Don't you think He's got it right? I saw a chap today at church during the service. He was concerned that his very, very young kid being out the front and a distraction to the congregation, perhaps, while the preacher was endlessly preaching. I felt like the child myself. But he really stormed forward and grabbed the child by the shoulder or the arm and and simply forced the child back to out of the public eye. It was a violence, you see. I don't mean it was horrendous, for goodness sake, but I mean it was a violence. And he was doing what he understands to be right because of an insensitivity to the gentleness, quite honestly, of our God with us, who does not seize us by the arm and drag us into a certain environment. And for the child's sake, I wanted in my heart to have the child's dad come to understand this. But of course I don't know him from Adam. I haven't met him. I haven't even talked to him. I've just observed. You know, that middle of the three ways of learning where we just observe good and evil in the world and the consequence thereof. And you know that evil brings what we understand to be evil, brings unhappiness in its immediate consequence. In the greater pattern of things, it may well bring us great blessing in that we learn to reject such evil and understand and hold to the good more truly. But in its immediate consequences, we see evil as resulting in evil. You know, broken relationships, mistrust. You know, does the child grow in trust and faith and love when the parent constantly imposes and forces goodness upon it? No. No, it doesn't. In the parable, the father allows his son to go off, spend and waste the inheritance. Lets him run full circle through a life experience that brings great sorrow and hardship and distress, such that his son comes to himself, sitting in the pigsty, says, I'm not staying here, I'm going home. I'm going to my dad. And he does so. And does his dad even tell him off? Dad doesn't even want to accept his apology. He just wants to shower loving kindness and acceptance and welcoming upon him. And is very distressed when his son's other brother does not wish to do the same. Do you see, we have an awesome God, and the more we realize how awesomely wonderful and lovely and kind and good and loving, etc., 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 that he is, the more we start to reflect, become whatever, I don't know, like him. Why? Because that's what we value. That's what we find we value. And we start to see him for real in this way. Because he is the personification of what we value. And we're finding out what we, in terms of the eternal being that you are, you and I, in heavenly places are. We come to find out who we truly are in that eternity. So in the world of the universe, the uncertainty, we are born from not existing at all to being conceived in our Father's mind and heart, so to speak, and being, and brought into fullness of life here, or a great measure of it anyway, in the universe of the transitory. Don't mean I've got the complete view. I don't mean I've got the complete view. I mean that that's what I understand to value. And this may change in the experience of my Heavenly Father's care. And I'm simply going to trust that He is well able to develop us in the right direction always, and does. Because I can trust nothing else. I would be mad to trust otherwise. For how could I ever come, if you like, in my own strength, in my own ignorance, but for the grace of God? So I trust in the grace of my God. And you need to trust in the grace of yours too. That we may come to love each other with Him eternally. What else would really satisfy us but that? Thank you, Dad.